Tonight. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm Angelica Diggs and I'm the Executive Director at the Montclair History Center. Thank you for joining tonight's History at Home, which is actually the third installment of the Scientific American series. With tonight, we're with architect and Board of Trustee member of the Montclair History Center, Deborah David. So we're excited to continue on this journey. Tonight's presentation will focus in on the Architects and Builders edition. This presentation is made possible by a grant from the New Jersey Council for the Humanities, a state partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. So we just like to acknowledge them. I think I said this a couple times now, but if you are more than one person and more than 20 miles away, let us know. We love to put that into our records. Feel free to use the chat this evening as much as you like. We'll do a live Q&A at the end of the presentation, and we'll either read questions from the chat or you're welcome to unmute at that point if you'd like to speak as well through the Zoom itself. We also will be having our little holiday break. And then we have our next History at Home coming up in January, will be after the new year, also diving into the history of the Van Vleck houses with township historian Mike Farrelly and also Montclair architect Paul Sionis. So if you're interested in tonight's, you're definitely going to be interested in the one in January as well. So I want to hand it off to Deborah David, who's done a few of these series now. And she's going to continue on. Scientific American's a really interesting publication that was done in the 1800s, featuring some really amazing homes in Montclair. So thank you, Deborah, and I'm going to hand it off to you to get us started.
Hi, everyone. So we're basically continuing on from where we left off last time. I think we ran out of time. So some of those are going to get added on, and some of them will have to wait till the next time because we still have probably 10, 11 more to go. So, bear with me, the people who have come to the other two. The first couple of slides are repeats, but just to get everybody up to the same place, we're going to talk a little bit about Scientific America. The Architects and Builders Edition, it was a supplement beginning to for the Scientific American magazine. And Scientific American, the company was run by two guys who were kind of like they had a patent office, and they turned all these patents into here's our fellows, Orson Munn and Alfred Ely Beach. They were patent solicitors. Now, I'm not sure they were lawyers, but they they had their business. Uh, Munn was from well, both of them were from around Springfield, Massachusetts, and they met when they were really young in school. And I think that Mr. Munn was more of the lawyer type, where Mr. Beach was a real inventor. And sometime we should probably talk about how all the different inventions he made. He kind of was up there with Edison, but you don't hear as much about him. Um, for a long time, actually, well, so they were the first to grab up new inventions, probably for uh, contacts for advertising. But by the time that they closed down, by the time that um, these two guys died, they had over 100,000 patents that they had worked on. The magazine was then, continued till I think it's still going, um, by their sons or their kids and their nephews and all that kind of thing. Now, I was certain that we found um, Alfred Ely Beach's apart. I was sure that he had the land here in Montclair, but it may not be him. It may be it may be a nephew or something like that. But somebody had bought some property um, to develop in Montclair. And it'd be cool if it was the same guy, but I'm not sure. And I know Mike Farrelly um, questioned me on it one time, and I was adamant, but I may be wrong. So in the 20-year history of the building, architects and building um, magazine, there were 50, I found 51 Montclair buildings. Now, today we're not only going to see some residences, but there's also some actual buildings that I know you'll recognize. Now, why did people want to choose Montclair? At some point, um, I'd like to see how many other towns had as many um, featured houses and buildings in the magazine. I found a couple of Glen Ridge ones, but I didn't put those in. So, but it was Montclair had developed from a farming community to a kind of a vacation spot in a place where, like, a bucolic place that artists came to paint landscapes. And then the railroad lines came in and made it a lot easier for people to get out here. And then it was like, well, let's bring our families out of the dirty city. Um, and we'll just commute to work. So that's how we started to do it. And these are approximate locations of um, the 6 train stations we have in Montclair. I don't think any other town has 6 um, stations. But the rumor is that there were 6 executives, and they all wanted a train station by their house. I may have made that up too, but don't tell anybody. And I always like showing this picture because it just is, transportation's always really interesting. I just want to know how they ride the bike with those dresses on. I mean, too many times I got my jeans stuck in the chain. So it was first published in the building edition was first published in 1885. It was renamed the Scientific American Architect and Builders Edition in December. I guess that the architects wanted a little more recognition. And then they renamed it again in 1901 to the Scientific American Building Edition, and then it was under this name until 1905. There's 236 issues, and with 39 volumes. Now it was 25 cents a week, or 25 cents an issue, or $2.50 a year, which would be nice. And here we go. So it's the special edition. Also, they would have pullouts where they'd have color plates, which would show, really nice renderings or color photos or really nicely rendered plans. And to get started, I thought I would add a funny um, little snippet out of the magazine about a man in Connecticut and I don't know whether it's a joke or not. It sounds like a joke, but that's okay too. He wanted to put a water pipe through a drain several feet below the surface without digging up the drain. And it said tied a string to the cat's leg, put her into the drain, and told her to scat, and came out through the other way, and they saved $10 by not digging up the pipe. True or false? Now, these are the houses that these are the buildings we're going to focus on today, except for the last one, which I just had a little snag on. So I don't want to show it to you because I maybe have taken the picture of the wrong photograph of the wrong building. So we're going to start out. I'm going to really quickly do a couple of things with the Van Vleck. I'm not going to talk about it very much because of the upcoming lecture next month, and so I don't want to steal their thunder. But this is like this whole area, as you can see, it's from the 1900s. This is the 1906 map that we have um, in our library at the History Center. And it's a really great, it's great because it like shows the outline of the houses. It shows who owns it. And I just find it really very interesting. You can see this must be Van Vleck block, the Van Vleck block between Valley and Upper Mountain. And if you also do also notice, there's a big empty swath that's cutting through the back of the Van Vleck um, property. Well, that was the train that was supposed to go. They were keeping that empty so the train that was supposed to go to Caldwell could go through there. And so Mrs. Bentley's house, Mrs. Brantley's house, I think that's Tierney's. So we have, this is obviously not the Van Vleck house. It is a Van Vleck house, but it's the first Van Vleck house on that property. It was built in 1890. It was brownstone laid at random with a red mortar pointing. You don't see that very often anymore, but that was the fashion then. It was a shingle style house. Well, they said it was they called it a colonial and I added Queen Anne features because that's a Queen Anne turret if I've ever seen one. What else is interesting about this house is that the architect was J.D. Cady, and he primarily did church buildings and more institutional buildings. And so it's interesting that he did this shingled house. The roofs were shingled, wood shingle, but they were painted red, and it might have been fireproofing paint, but it more likely, it could have also been a nod to a red tile roof. In 1890, it was built for $10,000, and these numbers are seriously, don't take them to the bank. They're more for fun. The straight dollar to dollar from 1890 to 2024 is about $350,000, and we know that you can't build a house for $350,000. So I'm doing I did an estimate at I think like 3 times whatever I ended up with the 2024 number, and slot maybe 1.5, but that's probably low too. these, oops, okay, hold on a second. My little thing here is in my way. I can't read it. Hold on. The lobby and the front doors. Now, I think it's interesting. This is just the entry area here. Then we have a nice long hall, and very generous steps going up. And this one also has, you know, little corner cabinets in the dining room. Every room has a fireplace, so we're still not getting what they did have a furnace, but they still had fireplaces in each room. This one's interesting also because it's well, it's I believe this one has the Tiffany. No, it's not this one. It's with white. It's the lobby and front doors are of antique oak, and they're all trimmed with white wood, finished natural. Um, I would have loved to have seen the newel head. And then there's a stained glass window right here. And I don't have a photograph of that because the house is gone. Drawing room, the kitchens and the pantries are wainscot. And they're fitted up complete meant that they had water and a pantry. And if you look at the kitchen, it doesn't have very much inside of it. They did have a fireplace, and it probably just would have loose tables that they could, do their, cooking on to put on the fire. I doubt this was cooked on an open hearth. There was probably a uh, a big old stove located someplace in the room. There was a laundry, butler's pantry, and a furnace, and they said gas, electric bells, and speaking tubes, which you only saw in the finest houses. Upstairs, we've got the tiniest little bathroom and actually large closets for that time. Usually a lot of the closets at that time were just basic 18-inch deep closets with hooks inside of them. But these guys probably had um, a lot more clothing than, the regular guy. These bedrooms are large. And then they, there were also, they're not showing it, but there's also, oh yeah, here we go. There's also 4 rooms in the attic, and that was probably for the help. And here's that location now. And so next month you can see what they cook up, what they're going to show you next time. Now, also with that Van Vleck house is their fun looking carriage house. And I know that steeple is not there any longer. But even the steeple, even this carriage house was designed by Katie. And maybe he's like, throwing it back to some um church, church-like spire. There's several stalls, a stable room, a very generous carriage room. Would love to see what their carriage looked like. And then the hayloft is on the second floor. I don't know where the groom would have lived, but I doubt it would be in the workroom. But this is a pretty fancy carriage house. Now we're going to go to 171 Orange Road, which is all the way in the south end, right before the orange border. The border with no with what are the oranges? Excuse me. These lots are really deep. And it's it's pretty interesting. So you can see here, St. Luke's Church, and if you keep going down Fullerton, and this is that part where it gets really confusing to drive around in that part of Montclair. There's some really fancy houses and some very decent, decent houses that aren't as fancy as, they're like, seem like they're family houses. This is a residence for Charles A. Hutchings. He was a had a he was in furniture and decorating, and he had a store, or he had a place of business in on 20th Street in New York, on East 20th Street. He's buried in Mount Hebron Ceremony, and they were active members of the Montclair Club on Church Street. The underpinning is, of course, sandstone, and rock faced is just a kind of a rough hewn look. Um, the first, the clapboard was painted colonial yellow with white trimmings, and I was trying to find a good picture of a colonial yellow, and it's more of a really rich yellow cream color. There, but on the second floor and the second floor and the roof, they were finished natural, and they were finished with hard oil. And I was like, what the heck's hard oil? And as you can see there, a it's a finish. It enters the wood instead of just coating it. So it's not like just it's just not like putting a paste and buffing it off. This actually goes into the wood, and it creates a natural finish that does not crack or peel. And I would love to talk to a cabinet maker and find out if there's anything comparable to that now. It was a $5,000 house complete. And that's $173,000 now. And I would still think this is over $1 million, but you can see it's got a really nice, generous front porch. They were showing off their baby. It's got really cool looking, little hats on top of the dormers, which you don't see that much. Well, I don't know whether I've ever seen anything like it, but it's not a really fancy house, which is it's got really fancy features, but not as fancy as one would think. Uh, uh nice spacious. Here we're coming in the front door, a really nice spacious hallway with a banquette or a divan. Again, we've got fireplaces galore. It would be a real chore to keep all of these going if this was their only heating. But it still has a furnace with a coal furnace. So that's it's, I'm sure that they probably use the fireplaces to toast it up a little bit better on those cold days. The attic has 2 bedrooms and a storeroom, so they also have help. Upstairs, there's 4 decent sized bedrooms. With you can see here, these are tiny closets, and one bedroom doesn't have a closet at all. It probably just had a wardrobe. Um, and then it's, when they talk about these fireplaces with hearth of white tiles, carved mantle finished same as trim, it just sounds really glorious. And I wanted to show you this. This is the Montclair Club. It was on pretty much on the corner of South Fullerton and Church Street, and it was a big deal. I believe it burned down at some point, but you can see that Mr. Charles A. Hutchings was on the committee for the club, and they had almost 1,000 people attend this gala in mid-December with there was a Hungarian orchestra and all the ladies were beautiful. So it's a different way of living. They brought the glamour out to Montclair from the city. This one was hard to get a picture of, and of course, I ran out of time once that the leaves fell. You can only get a little peek around the corner, and I couldn't get a good picture of the front at all. But I believe that this is added on, this blank part here. And here's this thing, the nice window above the stairs. And but you've lost all your little cute trims and the beautiful railings and balusters. It's still octagonal, but it's not as elegant. And I promise I will get a better picture at a later time. Okay. We're going to go on to Claremont Avenue, 1891. And this is for J.A. Richards. He was an advertising agent. And a lot of times it seemed to me that they put Esquire after most of the people's names. And they never listed the wife's name, which is, we're not even going into that. But I kept thinking there's a lot of lawyers in Montclair. But no, turns out that Esquire at that time just meant a man of means. But it kind of was a silly title. It said, I read one definition that said even in Shakespeare times they thought it was hogwash. So it's nothing new. That trying to pump up, guys trying to pump up. Sorry, guys, I didn't mean that all of you, but trying to pump up their, this guy's an advertising agent, so he is an Esquire. So his house, it's this, we're seeing a lot of, we're losing eaves here. And I really, I like eaves because you can stand next to the building without getting rained on. In the 1890s, they started to use photographs rather than renderings. And you can see that it's got, the whole family's hanging out on the porch. Again, we've got our underpinning of rock face red sandstone, and then they stained the wood a dark sienna, and then they trimmed it with white, and um, the blinds, and I think they don't mean blinds, I think they mean shutters, a bronze green. I love these top windows though, how they open out. It's, may not be a great thing to happen when there's a hailstorm, but it's there. So they're trying to like still keep these turret bits and then just putting a little hat on it. Not as, and then on the top of this one, they've got this nice um extra crown on the top of this baluster and little railing around it. You see that this one was only $7,500, which is 250,000 now. And I'm thinking that with what's going on inside the building, it was probably like a 1.3. And again, don't take my guesstimates to the bank. This house had a lot of stuff going on. You had this lovely porch coming up. The parlor had the round turret. Again, we've got fireplaces in a lot of the rooms. There is an actual laundry room in this house. I think they're probably, they never show toilet that, their only bathroom is on the upper floor. And it seemed to me that they probably had a toilet in the cellar. Let's see. The butler's pantry is quite extensive, and as well as um their dining room. They don't have a living room. They have this parlor that's got not that much room in it, except for in the turret part. So it may have been a little trickier to hang out. I mean, maybe they were big eaters or something, but the laundry is huge, as well as the kitchen. It has a lot of pantries. Oh, here's a WC. They have a small WC or a water closet on that floor, probably for the people that were working there. Upstairs, we had a nice winding stair that I'm sure that you could, put a nice Christmas tree or something in this middle part. This bedroom is interesting because it would be interesting to try to put furniture in it because of the shape. Not every bedroom has heat, which is kind of interesting. They do have a furnace. And way back here, I mean, they must have, if these are I think they're probably are the help quarters in the attic, but some of these tiny rooms, I would think that might be where the nanny or the cook or whoever the maid that lived had their rooms. And it's, well, see, there's 2 bedrooms and storage on the 3rd floor. And here's how it looks now. They've just stripped it down. We don't have these little fiddly I know that there's a term for it, but it's not in my head right now. They, they closed in the porch. Um, there's some, they closed in this porch and put a little roof over the top. Everything else is almost there, except for they took off this fantastic little railing and balusters above. It's people, I guess people, you get to the point where you really can't afford to um, do you need more space, so you close the porch in, or your porch gets too rotty. And so you can't afford to fix it up and replace things. So that's Mr. Richards, our now this is 152 Walnut Street. And people might actually recognize this one. It's on the corner of I think North Willow and Walnut. I've cut off the thing, but you can see this is also we talked a little bit about Van Riper before. He was this whole neighborhood, he must have just come in and snapped up a lot of the property around this neighborhood. He was a butter merchant, and which I found really interesting, that he was a commission merchant with a real estate holdings. He owned by his when he died $30,000 in real estate in Montclair. He was also on the town council, the school board, and the commissioner of appeals. And he owned all of this land. Now, this house was quite the woodworker's dream. Not only does it have a rocket turret, it has really interesting shingles, details all over the building, a lot of porches. This is probably a sleeping porch over here, and so was this. But this one has a brick foundation. Again, we've got this painted yellow with light brown trimmings, and then it says the roof is slate, which is interesting to put a slate roof on a wood house, a wood framed house. There are 4 bedrooms and a bath on the second floor, and 4 bedrooms on the third floor. Now, I think this might have been, it might have been like a boarding house. So they have tiled hearths, hardwood cabinet mantles. And in here, this is one of the first times I'm finding the word range, that they even though they're not showing the range, they probably had a range. The dining room's large. The parlor is large with our little dewdrop turret. And the hallway, that must have been a really magnificent looking entry stair going upstairs to the 4 bedrooms on this floor. And then there were a few more bedrooms on on the top floor. The hall, and there's a stained glass window as well. It looks like a pretty decent sized bathroom. If that's the longest tub I've seen in a long time, if that's really the size of the tub. But it has all these really great balconies. And here it is now. Anybody recognize it? Next time you drive down Walnut Street, you'll see it. And you'll see that I should have put another one with it next to the other side. They've taken all the porches away on every floor, which is okay. They probably rotted. And then over the brick foundation, they've parged it with some sort of a, stucco-like agent, and I'm not sure whether that fancy, I doubt, that looks like something new on the chimney. It's kind of a funny looking one, but not so bad for Mr. Van Riper and his butter business. Now we're going to look at a parsonage. Angelica, I'm already running out of time. Okay. First Congregational Church on South Fullerton. I think everybody knows where that is. This is where the library is now. And right behind it, you see a little, a decent sized building in back, and here's the parsonage. It was also by J.D. Cady, which is, interesting. Here's this, very famous architect doing these little wood houses. And so, I guess either he was having his apprentices work on it, or he was a big fan of Montclair. It's got quarry faced brownstone laid at random, and we know that we had the Osborne quarry up on Seneca, I believe it is, that was there for a long time, and a lot of times they would use that stone, which was also called trap rock. Now, I guess that for the parsonage, they wanted to spend a little extra money. So in 1891, it was $15,000. And in 2024, would have been about 250,000. I'm thinking that this one would have been a lot more expensive. It's got electric bells and speaking tubes, which you also saw in the other house that J.D. Cady designed. And this is Mr. J. Cleveland Cady. He was also, he established the AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects. He also designed Brooklyn Academy of Design and the Natural History Museum in New York City. So, we got fancy people coming out this way. So the parsonage had a drawing room, a library. We have to be able to meet and greet people. So the hallway was quite generous. The porch, it doesn't have as fancy of a stairway going upstairs, but it has two stairways, which is interesting too. But it's got large rooms and two nice porches. The upstairs has the hall had stained glass windows, rich in color and design. It's the drawing room is finished delicately in cream and gold with a pretty open fireplace, tiled and mantel. The library is trimmed with cherry. The windows at the side are cut down to the floor and open out into the piazza, which is always, so you can walk right out of the library in onto the covered porch. Upstairs, we've got 4 bedrooms. Evidently, the preacher had a dressing room as well. And the closets on this house are also larger than what we see in other places at this time. And here's what it looks like now. I don't know whether it burned down or what. I didn't have very good luck finding out where all the disappeared houses went. But this is what was built back there now, at this point. Now we're going to look at Mount Hebron School, which is now Buzz Aldrin. This was and it's at the corner of Bellevue in Norwood. This was a small building that was designed by George Cunha. Hopefully I'll be able to do a talk on him at some point because he was quite the character. He was supposed to do the Plaza Hotel, but he found out in the newspaper, by reading the newspaper, that he got replaced by somebody else. But he did a lot of very nice, elegant brick buildings and other buildings around. But he ended up living at the top of Alexander, at the corner of Alexander and Valley Road. And that it's great that his home was greatly changed. So in 1892, the cost for the school was $12,000. And it probably would be at least $2 million now, but you know that it would be $4 million if it was anything. The schoolrooms are, they had a boys entrance and a girls entrance, and from what I understand, the toilet rooms are in the basement. There's cloakrooms, and then there's another entry from the front as well. And it said it's heated and ventilated by the Routow-Meade system. And we talked about heating in the last talk. And it's still, I could not find this Routow-Meade system in any of the books that are online. So I don't know exactly how it worked, but it seems like that it must have been some sort of either a drop heating system or some sort of maybe the heating system came up from the basement and just kind of filtered up because heat rises. But I'm sure the little kitties were not that warm. Now, I looked all around this building and I could not, I think that it got just enveloped by the rest, the next couple of additions, because I could not find anything. I can't, if you walk around the building, you can't find anything that looks like that sweet little building. So we'll figure it out sometime later. Now we're going to look at St. James Church. Angelica, do you want me to just do one more, or should I keep rocking and rolling?
You keep going.
Okay, because I'm of course never very close to being done. This is St. James, on the corner of Valley and Bellevue. And there, I think everybody knows about this church that's from town. It's in Upper Montclair. This was the original design. And it's just a very sweet looking church, and it's got the local rock, the local trap rock, and the corner points. Oh, and Wendy has a question or something, but in any case, the steps are brownstone, and the roof is covered with blue slates. And it was a small church at the time, smallish, and it had a cloakroom, a vestibule, and tiny little Sunday school. It's just like a sweet looking little church. I personally have not been in the church, so I don't know exactly what it looks like. Now, again, I tried to get these pictures earlier and ended up with trees in my way, but you can see that the rose window is still there, but the main entry was replaced with some sort of a bell tower. So they got rid of this very cool looking tall roof. And this is where I'm going to complain a little bit. This is a really horrible renovation or restoration of the outside of the building. They really, really dug it out too much and put the wrong color of grout in. And if you look at the side, there's trimmings that are even more crazy. This was designed by Lamb and Rich, who also designed Sagamore Hill, Teddy Roosevelt's summer house. But I think it looks like a very cute little, it looks like a sweet little church before it got a lot bigger. But you can see that the difference between the repointing over here and the original over here on this part of the building. We've lost a little bit of the original feel of the building. Okay. Now, okay. Now we're going to go on to the corner of 139 Claremont and 65 North Fullerton. It's a large piece of property. And this was for Daniel Frederick Merritt. On the, I believe he owned a pottery company. But there's also some weird things on the ancestry census things. And sorry, we've got out of control dogs. It says it said he was a pottery company president, but in 1870 was a clerk in a store and a bookkeeper. So I'm not sure what he did. Now, at this point, he they started using really nice renderings for the buildings. Instead of sometimes they're a photograph, sometimes a nice rendering. And you can see that it's a lovely, to me it's a Dutch colonial. Um, and it's the stone walls, rock face sandstone again. Um, but it's got a really nice kind of it's a very elegant looking house. As you see here, a lot of fireplaces. They're trying something different with the way they did the rendering. Four large bedrooms, very large bedrooms. Um, each of them have a fireplace, um, as well as the parlor and the library and the dining room. There are also there are three bedrooms and a billiard room on the top floor. The bathroom is a little bit more generous this time. The closets are not. I mean, can you imagine trying to get everything into those little triangular shaped closets? I think not. Um, the fireplaces and the hearths are brick, and it's got a nice um sorry, it's what am I saying? They have corbelled out for shelves, which I thought was a really interesting idea, above the mantle. Okay, here's our building now, gone. I've I've I would love to have more of an idea about how these buildings disappeared, whether they burned down or whether somebody bulldozed them. So whoever, this is right across from Paper Plane, coffee shop on that corner. Now we go to Gates Avenue, and I think this will be probably the last one. So we are not sitting here all night. This one is a particularly lovely building, and it's also rather, it was designed by rather famous architects. They've got his name spelled wrong. It's not Wright, it's White, Wight. And this is Lewis. He was an insurance broker. And if this isn't a colonial looking house, I don't know what is. But it's also got all kinds of really fancy um, railings, but it doesn't have the like two-story columns like you see down in the South, but it certainly isn't a um, straight run-of-the-mill porch on the outside. They say it's a true example of American colonial architecture, and it's built in a workmanlike manner. Ornamental balcony. There's also another, I don't know whether they can go up on the high roof, but maybe it's just up there for decoration. Um, the shutters or blinds are painted bottle green, and the roof is shingled. This was designed by McKim, Mead and White. Mr. McKim is in Rosedale Cemetery, and I had to show all of this because that little lady in the front is awfully out of scale. But it's still a pretty cool looking rendering. Um, um, McKim, Mead and White are very, very famous. Mr. White was infamous. If you want to look, you can Google that firm and find, get your background on these guys. Um, $15,000 in 1893. We're really jumping up there. So that I have been in this house. It was on the Essex uh, County tour, and it's got a billiard room that you cannot believe in. Um, it's like a half a story up from the kitchen. It's very cool. Um, Here we've got a wraparound porch, but they're calling it a piazza. Um, the reception hall, the front door right here. There's fireplaces galore. Um, this would be really an interesting. I think that everything is still there. In fact, I know this fireplace is still there. Um, the dining room is large. There's a built-in closet. You know, this is it says toilet, but don't I don't know whether that's really, or whether it's just like a vanity that you can wash your hands. The kitchen's large, still is. And as you see on the second floor plan, the billiard room, and the cool thing about the billiard room is that it's got a curved ceiling. Um, it's square, but it goes up to this. It's very cool. I should probably get a picture of. Um, large large hallway with bedrooms, large bedrooms with big fireplace, and our 3-leaf clover uh, fireplace is brought up to the second floor. Bathroom. So you can see you're coming up the stairs, but this is even up a little bit more. Oh, and this one here the fireplace has Tiffany brick. And if you've ever seen that, it's got a really nice glazed finish. Most of the time it's modeled. It's it's more of a glassy finish. And wrong direction. And here it is now. We've lost the nice round top windows on the top floor. We've lost our friend the railings on top. There's no railings around the porch on the second floor. But it's the cost of doing business. But they did keep a lot of the dentals and that kind of thing on the house. You can see that the porch roof may need a little work. So let's stop there. And so if you have any questions, because I think we're at our hour, right? Oh, we're past our hour. I talk a lot.
Thank you, Deborah. It was interesting. It's interesting how even in the late 1800s, just the prices of construction were so varied, even though some seemed like really intricate houses. I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's, I think it might have depended on whether it was for a developer or for a family.
Makes sense. Yeah. I didn't see any questions in the chat. I just want to open up to anyone on tonight. Feel free to unmute if you want to ask or share anything.
Yeah, Deborah, hi. The um, fences on some of the roofs, are they equivalent to widow's walks or are they simply decorative?
They're simply decorative.
There's no
I think they
accessibility.
could be. I didn't want to call it a widow's walk because it just seems kind of creepy. And we're not that close to the ocean, so I
But
think
but
that,
widow's walks you can access. And I wondered if people could go up to the roof and, lean against the
yeah, I mean,
fence or.
I don't know, but there might be a hatch to this roof, but
Mhm.
if so, they may have already sealed it because it would be a little wet. but no, they seem to be pretty tall, those of the railings up on this house. So they very well may be um a widow's walk.
Deborah, one question in the chat from Anna is curious to know why these houses were featured in Scientific American. Was there a pattern, perhaps?
Well, see, we always get kind of cut off on when I get to Plymouth Street. I think that they were like in the last talk, we talked more about Christopher Myers as the architect. He used to, and he was the Scientific American at one point became their own architecture firm, and Christopher Myers had moved to Montclair, and he was the architect who did most of their work. So he had probably 12 houses, at least 12 houses um, in the series. I don't, like when we get now to the 1890s, there's much more featured of the more famous architects. Other than that, right now, I don't think there's all that much of a thread. But I did notice starting in 1890, and this is that it's sort of it's mostly the more prominent architects.
I say Da Cunha and Mead McKim White were pretty known. Yeah.
Yeah. And also Katie. I mean, shoot.
Yeah.
He did the Museum of Natural History.
Right. I feel like his name is not, at least to me, isn't heard as much, but interesting.
We have wild animals in our house.
Someone just was commenting, would love to hear more about some of the Montclair clubs one day and social clubs. My
Yeah,
goodness.
I have that.
Yeah.
I would like to. Hey, I've got as long as my arm, I have ones that I would love to do. The Montclair Club was very fancy, and women were only allowed to come on Thursday nights.
Interesting.
But otherwise, it was a men's. It was
Yeah.
where you gather to smoke cigars and play cards.
Hence the starting of the two different women's clubs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone else said, how did you choose the houses to show us or that you research?
Well, I first I've been working on this since 2017. And at first it was a little bit more like, oh, that's a cool one. Oh, that's a cool one. And I was keeping all the famous guys to last in the church and the school and all that. But now I'm doing it chronologically.
Makes sense. Someone also noted they were kind of expecting to see innovative design features or materials like concrete or something, but I guess that wasn't the case for these designs.
No, I mean, there's the innovations were like heat, some coal-fired heating,
That makes sense.
things. They did use a lot of the material, there's a lot that use the foundation from, with the rock from the Osborne quarry. But you can see that these houses were, this is their idea, the people's idea of elegant living.
Yeah. This is an interesting comment. Francis saying it seems like the properties had a lot fewer trees in the 1890s.
Oh my. Oh,
yeah.
There's like no trees. Like
no trees. It is. I noticed that too. That's interesting. Yeah.
I could, we're going the wrong way. I just gave you a preview of next time. This, I'm trying to find, look at these little bitty trees.
It's interesting. I wonder if perhaps it was part of the mass subdividing of properties and it was just open and exposed when they were developing on them.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And we're just looking at
Okay, look at this.
yeah.
Look at this. Look at the trees are all little itty bitty trees.
Now they're just grown up.
Yeah. No, but that's a good point. I was going to
That's
bring that up actually.
a great point. Um, Someone was just saying Montclair boasts a couple of houses made of Portland cement invented by Thomas Edison. Do you know anything about that?
I there no. I'm that's a maybe Mike Farrelly knows more about that. I know where the house. I thought there was only one left, and it's on North Mountain.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on North Mountain near Anderson Park. The other one, I believe, is on Grove Street, right by the end, right where um, Chestnut Street ends on
No,
Grove.
okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, I haven't been as invested in Thomas Edison
Hmm.
as other people have. So I'm sorry.
I think that's all for questions. Anyone else have anything they want to ask or?
And George Musser, if he's here, I still haven't. I've been thinking about your question you asked 3 years ago for a long time about the forced air, and it said in the magazine it was forced air, but I haven't been able to find anything about it.
Oh, someone else just made one more comment. How many shingle style houses without the mixture of colonial revival and in what range of years were they published?
Wow,
Yeah.
thanks. Thanks a lot.
That's a big question, right?
Yeah, colonial style. I mean, see, a lot of these, I'm not necessarily one to call things a certain style because everything's eclectic. And I'm always wrong. You can ask, Jane, or you can ask Helen, or we always disagree on what the name of the style is. It seemed like that these shingle houses, these aren't really shingle style. Well, what we know also as shingle style.
Not true shingle.
Yeah, no, but these are like shingles,
Some of
but they're
them
not
are.
clabbered, which would be just strips of wood. Um, and then the roofs were, you know, a shingle style similar to what we have on the Clark House.
Mm.
Actually, some of these remind me a little bit of the Clark House, but
Sure. I
that was a hard question. Whoever you were, send, write us a letter and we'll look it up.
What's interesting about Montclair is that particularly at this time, with so much of the lot developments going on for these family homes, there were so many different styles people were interested in. So that's why Montclair has such a large mix of different styles of homes that were just what was popular, you know. At least that's my unprofessional opinion, architectural professional opinion.
And you can go on, and I mean, I'm trying not to drone on and on about certain things, but
Yeah.
because it's what I would give for a wraparound porch, but it's really sad that it's really difficult to keep those different features
Yeah, a lot got
a lot because it
open.
just rotted out.
Yeah, yeah.
And the storm shutters, like a lot of people would you close them during storms and whatnot,
Hmm.
or not.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Deborah. I think that's all the questions. Thank you, everyone. This